I know you and King Hubbert were good friends.
Well, I think so, or very much so. And we were together on the stuff with the Atomic Energy Commission, of course, for many years.
But doesn't your friendship go back further than that?
Oh, yes.
Did you know King in the 30s, when he was at the Illinois Survey?
No, I didn't know he was with the survey. The first time I really was in King's house was in a place he had in Washington, D.C. After he had...
After he'd left Shell?
No, before he went to Shell and after he had left Columbia.
Oh, I didn't know he was in Washington. Where was he? Was he at the geophysical lab or something?
Let me see, what was he doing there? They had a rented house there. And all I remember is that the trains passing through all the time. They were right into the L&N Railroad in a rather poor section of Washington. Was it southeast? No, no, it was probably northeast. And had some goldfish, I remember that at the time. And when King wrote the time of my retirement, he mentioned that he couldn't remember when he first met me, but he had known Bells very well.
Known the Bells?
He had known the Bells.
And the Bells were at Cincinnati when you were there?
No, Dorothy was.
Dorothy was, okay.
Dorothy was when I first met Fenneman. Fenneman was at the with the what's now the Earth Sciences, head of the Earth Sciences of the in Washington. The year I was there, well, when I started in. So I'd come over, came to the place on Saturday, and I came to my office at Cincinnati when I was a graduate student, and on a Saturday. And then I learned that Fenneman was in town, and he was going to have a dinner party. And so I kept a razor around in my office, a safety razor, and I was shaving in the laboratory when and Dottie was sitting on a stool watching me, and Fenneman came in. I was in my underwear, shaving, because only water we had around there, and so Dottie was sitting there, and Fenneman came in. He said, and went back out. So, of course, Dottie, thought some doctor had told her she had diabetes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I found her crying in one of the laboratories one evening. So, well, we were pretty good friends.
I gathered that, I gathered that. You were very good friends.
And, of course, I was to the wedding, Dot's wedding with Al. And I remember I had told Fenneman that I was going up to see her get married. And he said, well, kiss the bride for me. So I did. I got 2 kisses of the bride. I told her that, and she was thrilled. Fenneman had remembered it. Her. He did.
But Cincinnati must have been a very interesting place in those days.
Cincinnati was
that was
very interesting, of course, because after all, isn't everybody that is on the faculty also, besides being a graduate student?
You were on the faculty?
Well, I was an instructor, yes, and just went to all the faculty meetings, And in fact, on Fenneman's 60th birthday, I gave minutes of the last shaft meeting, and tried to take them all apart. And Fenneman liked it very much. Fenneman was a Cincinnati. They had a literary club, and just a few people, and each member was supposed to write something, I think twice a year, and read it to the club that was not in his particular line of work. So this was the time when Fenneman had, well, if you read his memorial that Bucher wrote before him, you find probably 50 titles, or maybe 25, of the titles that he had written for this literary club.
Well, going back to Meinzer again, I gather that, well, after Jacob coming, did things smooth over?
Oh yes, very much so, because well, the reason how I learned about Jake was I'd written on it when we were working in the Rio Grande Valley, and Tommy Robinson was up in San Luis Valley. I wrote to him. Well, you can read Harold Thomas of
Harvard?
No.
Oh, okay.
Harold Thomas of Survey, and about the thing that explained the particular explained barometric effects was due to the competence of the overlying beds. You know competence? That's a beautiful term. Yeah. Because it covered a multitude of sins for geologists. When I wrote Meinzer saying that artesian wells had anything to do with those in the San Luis Valley, and that this idea of competence could only mean the strength as a slab of the overlying rocks. And I didn't have anything about a slab at the time, but I just took a beam. I had the formulas for beams in my engineering notebooks, and so with just a half an inch of weight on a 50-mile slab, assuming that its strength and tension would be the same as the strength and compression. I think it was some preposterous thing. It should deflect in the center about 50 or 100 feet or something like that. So it was preposterous, and I said it was simply a matter of shifting the load from the water to the skeleton of the aquifer. Well, Meinzer sent the letter on up to Jake, who was in Max's office at the time, and Long Island, and taking work at Columbia, working on his degree at Columbia, an advanced degree, and so he had something from Timoshenko as to a real slab supported at the ends and also at the center. And so they had the problem worked out. Got the same answer as I did, but he said it was a little bit better. And he improved a lot of things. Actually, I saw that there's only 1 degree of freedom, actually, for the compression of the aquifer, that is vertical.
Right.
And So I'd tried to make some comments about linear compression of it. And of course, Jake wrote back that there couldn't be any linear compression. That's why it had to be volumetric as far as water is concerned. Mm-hmm. And at any rate, we got that problem straightened out. That was the first I'd heard of Jake.
Well, that's when he was running railroad trains. They were looking at the...
This was before the railroad trains.
Before?
Oh, yes. I don't think that Jake had done anything particularly at that time. Mm-hmm. But as soon as he got the idea, he just got the railroad trains and got the analysis of it and everything, so that he was, of course, he could take your ideas and build them up farther, of course. And so when he got to Washington after Lee was retired with disability, things began to improve as far as, and a couple of years later, Meinzer could talk about my pioneering work in print. I've forgotten which paper this is. But
well, that must have been 10 years after the fact.
6 or 7 at any rate.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. Well, let me ask you another question. The pumping test at Grand Island that Lee ran, how
Yes.
much of that was that designed to test?
Meinzer had gone to Europe and had met Adolf Thiem, Gunther Thiem, the young one. And so he had talked about, he'd been using pumping tests, along in the Rhine Valley and other places for water supply. So Meinzer talked to Thiem, and he brought the idea back, and he decided to really try it out. And how many wells did Lee have?
Well, that was the first really full-scale pumping test with lots of observation wells.
Well, it was the only one at that time. Yeah.
It was the only one in this country at that time.
Well, no. I think I think did Piper do something in Pennsylvania? Who was that in Pennsylvania that presumably made some sort of a pumping test? But I think this was after Meinzer had been to Europe and had talked to Gunther Thiem.
I see. So he
because
brought that
this was
back
just before Hitler's time, and Meinzer was sending back to Thiem various baskets of food.
I see.
Because Thiem was having a hard time there, as Hitler was.
Was Thiem a Jew?
No, I don't think Thiem was a Jew. Doesn't sound like it particularly. I don't think he was a Jew. But he was hard up, at least at this time. So I guess he appreciated Meinzer's baskets of food.
So the idea at Grand Island was to run this?
This was Meinzer's idea. And Meinzer actually, what Lee's paper is, pumping test, getting the permeability is what the word he used, and also showing how the test could get the coefficient of storage, really specific yield.
Right.
And Meinzer told me that he was the one that insisted that Wenzel go into this matter of specific yield out of these pumping tests. So then told him how to do it. That's what
Wenzel would not have done that. He would have used a straight Thiem analysis, and
he would have used it only for permeability.
I see.
And
So Meinzer insisted on that.
Meinzer insisted on it, according to Meinzer, and I guess it's true. I think it's true.
That's interesting.
It was, he was I used to say he was going to be the last Christian, and Meinzer was the second to last or something like that, you know. But Dave, of course, worked during the first part of the war, and he got a infected tooth, which worked throughout him, killed him.
It did kill him.
Did kill him.
And
so,
he couldn't have been that old at that time.
oh no,
was
he wasn't. I think he's probably the late 50s, something like that. I'm not quite
Late 50s, was he?
yes, it would be, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because he started me out working, you know, in Tennessee.
Did.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was worried about these hysteresis loops at Atlantic City, which he had observed. And I remember him talking about that at one of the study meetings. And so I sat in his office one day, and he made guesses about the quarterly schedules of pumping by quarters, and also about how far away the
effects would...
where the artesian water came from, the fresh water. I mean,
Atlantic City? For Atlantic City?
Yes, back where it was in water tables and stuff. Well, at any rate, I worked it out by slide rule and got the same hysteresis loops. And they got the water level going way, way down. And I said, there's something wrong with the equations. And but he said, well, the hysteresis loops are still there. And so he was very much excited about the hysteresis loops. He was, yes, he was one of my friends, I guess. He was always a friend. Meinzer in writing a memorial in GSA to David, had several people say things about knew David well, and I know I was quoted from a letter I'd written because the thing that distinguished him was kindliness. He was thrilled about at least that his loops are finally explained, and so that I rather think, as I said, and I've got an autobiography. I'm writing an autobiography here in somewhat lengthy style, and so I think that maybe David really did have in the back of his mind a transient theory.
Bob Bennett said that to me one time.
Did he?
Yeah, he suggested that to me, and I don't know whether he got that from you or whether he got it. I don't know that he knew Dave Tompson that well. But he had suggested to me that Dave Tompson probably had thought about these things.
Well, I guess I don't remember quite what he did say about his hysteresis loops. I remember he did talk to the club one time in my days. This was several years after he had been there.
Been at Atlantic City?
Atlantic City, yes. Barksdale was handling all the work in New Jersey at that time.
At that time.
My time.
Going back to King Hubbert, C.V., it seems to me that his paper, his 1940 paper, didn't have the impact it should have had on the groundwater community.
Well, if you look at my acceptance of the medal that he gave me, Yes, say that he had more trouble. He was more revolutionary at the time than I ever was, and but he had even more trouble getting his ideas across. Well, here's 15 years after he publishes. Here's Theis teaching all the groundwater people that as soon as Darcy's law fails, you get turbulence. And of course, that's one of the ideas, the main ideas of Hubbert's 1940 paper.
Yeah.
The,
why was that paper was not, why do you think that happened?
well, I know as far as I'm concerned, I was having all my troubles with getting transient hydraulics across, and so I didn't work on King's papers like I would have liked to. But it's hard to get an idea across. After all, what was Einstein said? That when they measured the star during the eclipse to prove about whether his relativity ideas were wrong, he didn't bother him. He says, if I'm right, I'll be a great man, or something like that. And if I'm wrong, I'll be just another Jew.
Another clerk in a patent office, huh?
Yeah. So, now I don't know why. Well, yes, as I say, if you're going to have new ideas, it's going to take some time to get the idea across. And well, I remember first, the only time I heard T.C. Chamberlain. He was an old man at the time. He talked to Section E of
AGU?
No, not AGU, but AAAS. And he said, one time I heard him talk, he was an old man, a beautiful old man, incidentally. I have a story about that you may not know. But he is a beautiful old man. But his trouble was, so everybody accepts the planetesimal hypothesis, but they refuse to accept the corollaries to it. That was his main idea, and this must have been one of his last papers. You know, when Chamberlain was working on planetesimal theory, he often worked late at night at the office. Did I ever tell you this?
No.
Or I hear it any other place? This is a story I'm pretty sure that I got from Arthur Spencer. But he was very much he would work late at night. And it seems to me he's crossing a bridge over the river, walking home at night, rather late at night, and he suddenly recognized that somebody had passed. It was on a dark street, or maybe it was a bridge. That he suddenly realized that this fellow had bumped into him in a rather strange way. Well, Chamberlain, as a young man, must have been a tremendous guy, because he's such a good-looking old man. Mm-hmm. So he felt for his wallet. His wallet was all right. Then he felt for his pocket watch, of course, and he didn't have any. So he goes back and taps this little fellow on the shoulder. Says, "I'll thank you for that watch." And so the fellow passes it over. And Chamberlain puts it in his pocket and goes on to his home. And his wife met him at the door and says, "Well, Thomas, I thought you'd be late. I noticed that you forgot your watch this morning."
Oh, really? About the days in the AEC. Well, let me ask you, who decided on the test site as a good place for nuclear testing?
with the Nevada test site.
Yeah, the Nevada test site.
I really don't know. Of course, the NVR, NERTs,
Yeah.
Nevada's
Yeah.
nuts, of course,
Right.
and NERTs,
Yeah.
the reactor
Idaho
testing
site,
station in
right.
Idaho. Of course, Stearns had something to do with
Oh, he did.
Well, they were at the time trying to decide whether to put the NRTS at Fort Peck
Oh, I see.
or in at there. And so I think I suggested that they get a hold of Stearns, who'd been in Hawaii for a long time. There's another thing.
But you were on
Yeah.
that. Well, Stearns came and then
Well, and so, he saw that the water supply that they needed, Snake Plain was the best place, and so that he recommended it. And he was so sure that they would do it, they optioned a lot of the land in Arco. And, so they put the station there. Of course, they put their headquarters in Idaho Falls. But they didn't know. They thought for a while they'd put it in Arco. But these people weren't going through with these options after they found out that they were going to have a big station there. And they took it to court. And so the judge bawled Stearns out really terrible from what I hear. Because, of course, something wasn't quite kosher.
well,
because
he had taken out options himself.
Yeah, oh, of course. He was, well, I met him only once, I guess. He was in Washington at the time. He's going over to Ascension Island to try to get some water for him on Ascension Island. And I guess Nora Dahl had just got out the this birth of an island. I think it's about Oahu. And Harold says, well, I didn't write it, but it's got my name on it. And so what was the thing? Let's get a couple of girls tonight and go out. This is in Washington. I didn't want to go along on that. So, you want the story? I don't know. You're not so important. He had a lot of trouble. He was, I've always said that I wouldn't want to be on a raft alone in the middle of the Pacific with
Stearns.
With Stearns.
Yeah.
He did have he thought of Stearns first always.
Yeah. Going back to the 1930s, you must have known Muscat. Wasn't Muscat around?
Well, not very much. He gave paper one time, and I gave that first thing I had about the flow lines in artesian aquifer. First thing. What was that? I guess that was in the AGU. I'm not really sure.
He was there at that time?
Yes, he was there. I talked to him about the thing. And of course, he and Journal of Rheology had put out a lot of the ideas about transient stuff. But I didn't know him at all well. Of course,
was Terzaghi around at those days too?
I met him on an airplane.
On an airplane?
Yes, out at from the GSA meeting in of New Orleans. He had been there. Must have been 2 or 3 years before his death. But he had been there.
That was in the mid-50s, though.
I guess
Late 50s,
was it?
probably.
Yeah. I forget
Did
just
he?
when it was. Because, of
He
course...
died in 64 or something like that.
he was... oh my goodness. Stu Northrop, head of the, was head for some time of the geology department in New Orleans. First PhD they had on the faculty, incidentally, in the geology.
In geology, yeah.
And he had Terzaghi for a instructor in, I think, in Roberts College. Was it Roberts College or one in Lebanon? I'm not really sure. I think Terzaghi was over there. And Stu's memory of Terzaghi was that he was so polite. He tipped his hat to the janitors of the place when he met him on the street. Well, we met there. He was interested in what good is gravel packing in a well.
He was interested in that?
Well, he's pretty sure that it wasn't any good. That is natural gravel pack. That's all right, of course. But just put an artificial gravel pack in, he wasn't at all convinced. He thought that was wrong. And as far as I can see, he's right. What good is it? What good is a gravel pack? Of course, one idea up in RTS was that it kept the pieces of lava from falling down and knocking on the casing, breaking the casing. Yeah, the tubing. Yeah. And so that that does have a real use there. But why not, instead of putting the gravel down there, why not make the well a little bit bigger, greater diameter?
Well, it always costs you something to put in a bigger diameter casing.
Well, it costs lots more to put in the screen, doesn't it?
Well, that's true, but it is, yeah, yes.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's true. Going back to the AC days, I know you were involved with the test site for a long period of time, but then...
Well, not very much. I didn't have very much to do with the test site. I was there with the first dynamite explosion when they were going into who was there? Well, at any rate, they put in used dynamite to really test out some of the theories they had. A California seismologist at that time.
It was probably from Berkeley. Byerly or one of those people?
Byerly. It was Byerly.
Harry Byerly.
Mm-hmm. And he was there at the time. Well, and of course this was just a little bit, what, 50 tons of dynamite or something like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, but I didn't have very much to do there. I came back once in a while, but I went out there 2 or 3 times. But I didn't really work there. I worked a good bit at NRTS.
At NRTS. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When
and
Paul Jones
the rest
was there?
of them, yeah, and he was there. Uh-huh. And then at Los Alamos, of course, and Columbia. I had to, when I Did I tell you about the time I stole a car at Antrim?
Well, sure.
Well, I'd been out in a fellow named Frank out there. I don't know if you ever met him or not. But at any rate, he drove out in the government car. And there's in the back of the lot where our office was, the parking lot, there was 10 rows of 10 logs or something like that for parking places. 10 rows of logs. And so I said I'd like to come back and work at night. And that, and he said, that'd be just fine. You can take the car because I got my car here too and I don't want to take it home. And so, all right. And so I went out to the lot and we parked the car. And let's see, the car was a Pontiac, the government car. There was one of Piper's. And so that I went out and said, well, maybe this key, I put the key in, locked and turned it, everything went all fine. So I drove off and started into the hotel, which was about 5 miles down the road. And we went on a side street to the main drag, and I passed Frank coming back. And I thought, well, I know just how to get to the hotel and everything, but I'd better go back and see. And so I parked the car there and walked back. It was just a half a block or something like that. And so I said, well, I see you here. I'd taken the car and was just starting home. He said, no, you didn't. There's your car. It was about three logs back from where I had taken this car. It was, and it turned out to be a Buick. Well, I said, I saw that something wrong. And I rushed back, and instead of having a Geological Survey license on it, it had a Washington State license. So I hurried back and put this in a regular place. And went back to the correct car, 3 or 4 logs back, and noticed that a fella and a woman, his wife, were standing by this Buick that I just returned. And so I went up. I said, I'm sorry, I got in your car by mistake and drove a little ways off. And he said, well, the General Motors car, I guess your key fit. And I said, yes, it did. My Pontiac key fitted it exactly.
Yeah.
And so he said, well, I don't mind you taking the car, but I just called up the police saying my car has been stolen. And they said, oh, you're drunk again. And he insisted he did. So now they're going to come here and they're going to find the car just where I said it was. And so the police did arrive by the time. I went down and explained it to them. So the fella got all right. But he was... So that's the only time I stole a car. Automobile. I never stolen anybody's watch either.
Tell me about your wife, C.V. I know she was a dedicated sculptress.
Yes, she was very, very good. That's the reason I married. Well, no, I was real. She was very much interested in sculpture was the reason I got interested in her. You know, of course, we've never been introduced. You see, we just picked each other up in camp.
Washington?
No, in camp in mouth of the Green River. She was teaching I was doing my thesis work in
mouth of the
Henderson
Green
County.
River?
Yeah,
Oh, this is in
Kentucky.
In Kentucky,
Yeah,
yes.
and she was in a camp with where several of them. They were having extension work in all these camps in county by county, and so this was in Henderson County, and I'd gone just to help. I'd gone out just to help the county agents set up his picture outfit, movie outfit, to run one of the films, propaganda films one night. It wasn't very interesting. I thought this girl was lying on a cot there, and she wasn't interested either. And so I wandered outside and looked at the moon, and pretty soon she came out also. And so we decided to, so I asked her, said, "You think the moon's better than the movie show?" And she said, "It's, I think, the fifth time I've seen it." So, and so we just got, we spent a couple of days together, and so we got started there. And then she came back to Cincinnati, of course, to study.
She did come to Cincinnati
Yeah,
to study.
well, yes, that had been arranged anyway, because our teacher at State, at Oklahoma State, had been, he was an artist, painter, a lithographer, as a matter of fact. He died, Dole Reed. He was in the local news because he'd been living in Taos for 20 years, I guess. So that he came, well, so she had intended to go back to Cincinnati where Dole Reed had studied, and so everything worked out very well.
Didn't she do some masks of famous geologists?
Oh, yes, I have. I could have. Bill Johnson. Bill Johnson took Fenman's place when he was in Washington. That is, he didn't take his place, but he was hired to do some of the work there. And so we'd known Bill in Cincinnati, and he was back in Washington when we first went back there. And he was a great party giver. And so he knew Gladys from Cincinnati days. And so he had an apartment with Max Leggett, bachelor apartments. Mm-hmm. And so Bill got everybody, all the geologists in, to all his friends in, and Gladys made masks of them. And
were these parties at the?
Oh yes, yes. I remember Darton looked at his. He said, "Well, I must say, there's none quite like it." Bill had put him on a batik sort of on the wall, and I got the picture of some of them then. Got two of myself. One I made a face, a grimace, and the other more. Two of mine are on there. One of Gladys, one of Lee Wenzel's, one of Darton, and Darton's wife.
I always thought Darton was a very interesting hydrologist.
He was world's best reconnaissance geology, I think, at least.
Yeah, the amount of work he did was.
Oh yes, yeah,
I understand he was had a big ego. I guess that's the way to say it.
Well, yes, that's what struck me. I'm not quite sure well, coming to think about it, he may have meant that as a compliment, that these masks really did show people up, different people. But he said, well, I must say, there's none quite like it. So I thought it was his ego coming out.
Did you know N.H. Bass, Wood Bass?
Not very well.
He must have been there about the same time in Washington. He was in the fuels branch. But I know he knew Darton and Washington also, and he had said to me that Darton was very, I gather, pretty difficult. Could be difficult. Well,
Phil King could also be difficult, you know, according to everything. Wrote a memorial to Darton.
To Darton?
And he was really a remarkable guy. He had a reason to be. He was, he first was a member of the, well, he left school, I think it was third or fourth grade, something like this, and helped his uncle. His uncle had some sort of a pharmaceutical business in New York. And so, well, he took up chemistry, he said, chemistry. So he studied his chemistry, and when he was about 16 or 17, he joined the American Chemical Society and was writing papers for them. And then, I don't know just how he got looking.
Then how do you know where?
Down there. Marius Camel and other people were working on the eastern seaboard. But he just took it up on his own.
Uh-huh.
You see, one of the reasons that we were supposed to refer to any of the survey as Mr.
Mr.
Mm-hmm. It was always Mr. Meinzer. I still would say Mr. Meinzer, although he'd got his doctor's degree, honestly. But we had so many people who didn't have any degrees, and great people, that it was really, you should really, the best people didn't have degrees, doctor's degrees. And so we were instructed to say Mr. until FDR came in with all these young social social studies doctors. So they were always doctoring, you see. Call up Mendenhall, who had an honest doctor's degree, and but he was Mr. to all of us, because that was the instruction. But when these whippersnapper little PhDs called up and wanted to see Mr. Mendenhall, and talk to Mr. Mendenhall, he got a little bit tired of it, and the receptionist let him know that it was Dr. Mendenhall when they wanted him. So it was the first time we ever used doctor. First time I was ever a doctor was when I worked with the Corps of Engineers. And they were very conscious of titles, of course. Not of degrees, but of titles, captain or lieutenant or so forth. And so that I was doctor when I got in working on Conscious Dam, with Captain Kramer. So I remember going out they had these Green Hut restaurants. Do you ever know about Green Hut restaurants?
No.
I think they still have them, or did for a long time after my time, of construction site little restaurants. I've got menus someplace around my days with them. But anyway, I was being doctored all over the place there. And as I went out to pay my luncheon check, the clerk says, "Are you Dr. Theis?" And I said, "Yes." And then she began telling me all her symptoms. I said, oh, I'm a doctor of geology, not of medicine.
When did you move to Albuquerque?
Oh,
Or when did you move to New Mexico?
well, my first job was in Tennessee, of course, and South Central Tennessee, and that folded up in the Depression. So let's see, that was, I got my degree in '29, and then spent a year with the Corps of Engineers in Cincinnati, and then in 1930 I took a job with the surveyors, and then that was the year I was in Tennessee. And that folded up with the Depression, and so I had this chance for this job in New Mexico at Portales Valley. And so I grabbed at it, and I just loved New Mexico as soon as I got here. I remember I'd spent a lot of time walking around the Kentucky mountains doing reconnaissance structure with an aneroid. And if you climb a hill, you'd be sweaty, all sweaty, and be sweaty all day. Well, New Mexico, or in Utah, which was my first job as a surveyor in the summer, you could climb up a mesa and sweat and wipe your face with a bandana, and you were perfectly comfortable from then on. So that I liked that very much, and that's where I stayed in New Mexico, which that Portales job was about, oh, well, that would have been summer of '31.
Well, in those days, wasn't the tradition that the survey went to the field and then you came back in the winter time?
That's right. And it was just in around *35 that decided to spend most of our time in the field and just go back to Washington once in a while for a refresher.
Well, that was a decision that Meinzer made?
I imagine so. I imagine so. I don't know quite why. It seems so foolish that you make a hurried trip to New Mexico and come back and write up a report in Washington. You always find out something you should have done out in the field when you start writing a report. So it seemed, I really don't know, everybody worked in the field. There's Max went up to Long Island, lived in Long Island, they see.
He lived in Long Island? Or
well, he did yes, when he was head of the office there.
Yeah, but I mean, was there a field office in Long Island before '35?
Oh,
There was. So
yeah.
it was only the people working in the West that came back to write the reports, was it?
Oh no, Max stayed up there. He
I
worked
see.
For most of the time and came back. Of course, it was a very short trip from New York to Washington.
Yeah.
And so we did that.
Well, Dave Tompson, was he staying in
Oh,
Atlantic City?
No. This was several years after David had been in Atlantic City. No, he was a handyman from Meinzer's handyman. He started me off, and he started Stringfield off at the same time. And I guess Max started under Piper in Pennsylvania, I come to think about it. Didn't like him. They didn't get along very well.
They didn't get along very well?
They didn't get along very well.
Art Piper's still...
Yes, he's still doing...
Yeah, still doing okay, isn't he? He moved into a... Ben talked to Art Piper, I don't know, a month or so ago.
So?
So,
Is he still at...
Monterey.
Monterey.
Carmel.
Carmel, yeah,
Well, going back to your wife again, C.V., I know you somehow met Maria along the way.
Rio.
Maria.
Oh, Maria. Oh, yes. The people that are on the corner house for us, I guess they were our neighbors, as a matter of fact. And it was a house that was there later, wasn't there at the time. And she knew the Elevanza people quite well. And so this was in the Depression. And we...
in the Depression, in the
yeah,
30s.
Yeah. And we traded clothes, old clothes and so forth for Maria's bowls. And this was a time in Julian, of course, the men decorate them. Mm-hmm. Maria made the bowls, and Julian, her husband,
decorated?
Decorated them, yes. And Julian was governor at that time. Well, I had an old tuxedo with pipe stem legs, and I took it up there, and Julian just, you'd tell he was governor at the time.
Governor of the
Pueblo,
Pueblo.
El Alfonso, and he had two canes. One of them said A. Lincoln across the top of it. And the other was a Spanish cane, much older than that, of course. He showed to us. Well, at any rate, Julian just was like this old tux of mine. And so we got some nice Maria's bowls for that particular thing, I know, or one of them. That was a good one. I remember Gladys holding it in her lap going home on the Pullman from Mexico to Washington.
Up there. This was before you had moved to
I
Mexico.
don't know. No, I don't think it was. No, it was. We'd already lived in there, New Mexico, because this was a neighbor in the house we just moved out of.
Well, so Gladys took it back to Washington too?
Well, because she was going back there for, I think we were having some meetings back there, and so she was out there for some time. And so I don't quite know how this happened. Maybe this was probably, no? I don't quite know how this happened. I can remember her sitting there with this bowl on her lap because she was so.
Well, Maria couldn't have been that well known in those days, was she?
Oh no, she wasn't. No. You belong to the Cosmos Club?
No, I don't belong to the Cosmos Club.
Oh, of course, that did you were there? Well,
I used to go down there, but I never belonged.
Well, I did. So I got for a long time. Got there. Little monthly notes, letter. Well, Maria went back to Washington, and I think it was when Ickes was there, and at any rate, she was went to the White House and everything. She's getting well known by this time, you see. And then, so I took her to the Cosmos Club. And she was there in her fine turquoise, you know, and she got really dressed up for this. And so she is sitting there, and some fool woman walks back here and says, "Oh, I've been admiring how," this was in a restaurant, the dining hall and dining room, and let me be the first to welcome you to this country.
Oh, really?
Yes, this was in the Cosmos Club bulletin, so I guess it was true. But they're careful about the men they have, of course. But you can't always be sure about the women that the men might bring, because that would be the first to welcome you to this country.
Well, Maria must have outlived her husband by a long time, didn't she?
Oh yes, I think he was. I think he was he was alcoholic. I think, and this died from effects of too much alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was her son, I guess.
Her son
did some of the decorating, the toffee.
Those pots are worth a fortune.
I imagine they are. We got a bunch of them there. I suspect we got $3,000 to $5,000 worth of pots.
Oh, I bet easily, C.V. Easily.
I really don't know because, of course, Marie's dead and Julian died a long time ago, and we have a couple pots decorated by Julian.
Yeah, those would be probably very valuable. Very valuable. I bet you got a lot more than that.
Well, I really don't have any idea. And Gladys, of course, is getting, I think I told you, she's very, very forgetful. So she probably doesn't know who Maria is nowadays.
Well,
you get old, you see.
Yes,
get troubles.
But you and Gladys have had a nice,
Oh, yes.
interesting life.
Oh, I think so, yeah. Yes. We did pretty well. She married almost 60 years now.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
it's pretty, worked out all right. Do you know anything about Dorothy?
No,
Whether she's,
I don't
she
know.
was awfully,
I don't know
yeah,
anything
of
about
course.
Dorothy.
Uh-huh.
You know, she was a very good friend. She and Al were very good friends of Burke Maxey's.
Yes, uh-huh.
They were very close to Burke.
Yes,
And I knew them pretty well because I had worked at the Illinois Survey under Burke, and so I knew Al Bell and Al, and I knew Dottie. Dottie was really, Dottie is a live wire, C.V.
Yes, Al was very quiet.
Yeah, Al was quiet, but Dottie was Dottie was far from
yes,
quiet.
I always said that she and her mother and her aunt were about the best gossips in the old world, in the old meaning of the word, that I've ever known. She could just talk interesting about everything. Yes, mostly about people, and never particularly catty, not no catty stuff, but she certainly could tell stories about her friends,
Oh, I'm sure that's
including
true.
me. I remember her telling about
I'm sure
these
that's
things.
true.
Yeah.
You know, I think King Hubbert was a pretty good friend
Yeah.
of theirs
Bet.
also, because Al, I think, didn't Al hire him at the Illinois Survey? Al brought him to the Illinois Survey, I'm pretty sure.
Did he?
Yes, I'm pretty sure. He worked at the Illinois Survey, not
Yes,
for a
I know
terribly
he
long
did.
period of time, but
No,
he
it was a
went,
very
I think
short time.
Al was the one who brought him there
Yes, I think he went from there to Columbia.
to Columbia. It's interesting that all of you were such close friends.
Well, of course, I was a young instructor when Dottie was a student.
When Dottie was a student,
Mhm.
yeah.
And I always liked her because she could tell these stories also. And as I say, one night I found her crying, and one evening I found her crying in the laboratory because she thought she had a TB. So she went to the hospital, and they put her in the maternity section. That gave Dottie a kick.
Yeah, I'll bet that did. Dottie liked to party, too. Dottie was pretty good at partying.
Oh, yes. She liked people, of course.
That's probably right.
And liked interesting people. That is,
Yes.
Burke Maxey and the King Hubbert and who else was it? Our former nephrologist in Washington.
I can't think of it.
He came from Illinois. Oh my goodness. His wife was a wonderful pianist. Fannie Mae was her name. And, I think of her name, last name, I don't need it. I'm having a little bit of difficulty with names. Always have, as a matter of fact, but it's lots worse.
It doesn't seem to be. Well, Lubin was a close friend when you were at Cincinnati?
Well, yes. The reason was that I was a member of Tau Beta Pi, still am.
Yeah.
Are you?
No.
Well, Lubin is, for instance, and you went to Caltech, and they had Tau Beta Pi there, apparently. Well, at any rate, Lubin was very good, but he was a year behind, and so it came to be a question of electing him Tau Beta Pi. And I've always said that my professors at Cincinnati were Fenneman and Wucher and von Schlichten, see, Beere, all good Germans. And I never had never heard an anti-Jewish remark by any of the German friends of mine. But people that were anti-Jewish were named Curtis and Grover. When I said we needed a Jewish mathematician, Meinzer told me you couldn't have a Jew because Grover wouldn't hire a Jew. Well, I never had known Lubin. He'd always been in the other section of the co-op engineers, so I didn't even know him by sight or anything. And so everybody told me that he wasn't really a good man for Tau Beta Pi, and so I voted also against him. But then Nick Salkover was in my brother's class and was in Tau Beta Pi, came and mad as hell about it the next meeting at any rate, because Lubin was very bright and very likable. So I asked for another election again, to consider him again, but they turned him down. Of course, I voted for him this time because I knew Dick, and he was a very decent one too. And so I just was so mad. I for a while considered resigning. And this man Curtis was really, I think he was president of the local chapter, Cincinnati chapter, Ohio Beta. And but he was one of those, he was anti-Jewish. See, it's people in Grover, of course, was. And those are those good English names. They were the anti-Jews. And so, because of that, I made a special effort to get to know Lubin, and we became very good friends. He was a year behind me in class, but he's just about the same age. I think he is within a year, same age as I am. And so it was just that we liked each other, and when I was with the engineers, I got working on reservoir evaporation, the Corps of Engineers. And I got him working somewhat on this problem. This, find some of the rest of the story in my acceptance of the heart and metal. But at any rate, we became friends because I felt he was so badly treated. Actually, he was a different kind of Jew, as a matter of fact. For instance, he was a pretty good fellow, good-sized fellow, but he was a small guy for football even in those days. But he came out on the scrubs, and actually, I think he didn't play a game and he was in the scrubs for 2 or 3 years, and the football team gave him a sweater.
Oh, they did? They gave him a letter?
Facial, yeah.
Wow, sounds like we're having a little thunderstorm.
Yeah, what's you do about that?
Yeah.
So, that's how I took so much interest in Lubin, and of course, he helped me an awful lot. In this correspondence that I think he can have copies of, he says, I offered him a co-authorship.
Yes, I know you did.
And
he turned you down on
he
that.
he turned me down. He said, first because my part was very small, and second because from the standpoint of mathematics, it isn't very important. And then said, I hope this doesn't sound too snooty to you, and of course it hasn't anything to do with your paper. Yeah. So,
C.V., I wanted to ask you something I asked you in your office a little while ago. How did you arrive at the heat flow analogy?
I don't think there's any question about it.
What led you to that analogy?
Well, you start thinking about Thiem's equation, for instance. And what I did first was I assumed Thiem's equation. Now, if you make the assumption that all the water that comes out of storage is immediately transposed to the rim of Thiem's equation, you get all the log term out of the transient equation out of it. But of course, first of all, you've got an edge in the water, because where the Thiem's equation goes right up to the surface, you see, and you can't have an edge in water very well. And so, actually, for most of the stuff, that would have been pretty well. I was working on the high plains then, and trying to get somebody to think about it. See, at Portellus, the bottom of the aquifer is 1,000 feet above the place where the main discharge of the water occurs at the eastern edge of the high plains. I guess it does. I'm not quite sure of that anymore. So that question had been bothering me a long time, and it isn't any great piece of thinking of realizing that you could get a transient idea. I don't think hard. In heat, you've got specific heat, and you've got conductivity, thermal conductivity, and so you've got same setup really that you have in water. And of course, specific yield is what I had in mind first, and I used that term first for and I don't think there's any great
It occurred to you, but it didn't occur to anybody else, so I don't know.
Well, I've written those things. I got a little bit mad at you saying I hadn't written in the papers. Well, you haven't written in the papers as other people.
Well, I didn't realize that offended you.
Well,
I think there.
I think so. I've taken pains to say that before we're starting with my High Plains report. As soon as I finished that, I had to start on the Rio Grande, and they wouldn't. I guess it was a year or so before the Rio Grande, but in which we had to do 9 months to do a whole 400 miles of river. Tommy Robinson took care of the San Luis part of it, and we stopped at Elephant Butte, of course, on the river because, then we had to write that up right away. And then as soon as that was over, then we had some more of this, and then we went on the Pecos River. We had to do the Pecos report. And I thought we did things. Wanted to point out Tommy Robinson. Well, we had Tommy Robinson came down to later when we from and worked well on the Pecos, but we had put some wells in and then put recorders on them. So I took a trip down there to see what was that, and Tommy had this well, and I said, I'd like to see the record. Well, he said, the first record of it said Tom Kramer, who was head of the potash company, US Potash Company there at the time, wanted to see it because he thought saw tides in it. So I asked him to get it from him, so I'd look over it and see him. And so he brought it over, and I said, well, let's take the barometric fluctuation out of it. And so I think we had 70% barometric efficiency or so. We took it out, and we got tides,
Good
of course.
tides, yeah.
But except in a regular way, they were 180 degrees out of phase. Because, of course, ordinary tides on the ocean, and by the loading effect in groundwater, they have a little lag, but on the whole, they reach at high points at the transit of the moon. And of course, these hit the low points at the transit of the moon. So we had something else. And this was the first
observation
of a crustal tide, body tide, in this hemisphere. And the first one since around 1906, when they were discovered, found in South Africa. Well, so I tried to put things together, but one thing came right on top of the other, so that, well, you probably want to look at my bibliography. I've got a long bibliography, but I never got a chance to stay long enough on one problem to get a write something up for publication. You can't do that in just 6 months. You have to if you're going to put out anything good on a new idea, you have to let it digest a little while to make sure that you don't pull an awful mistake.
Right. How long
like,
is your bibliography, C.V.?
Oh, it's 4 or 5 pages.
Yeah.
Just small ones. I don't know. It is in there. It's on the desk.
Yeah.
But they're not published. They're
a lot of them are internal reports.
Yeah. I wrote a report for the Corps of Engineers in Alaska Highway, of course, and I think I'm the only one that proposed that you have a seasonal insulation that has a big effect on the permafrost, whether or not they have permafrost. Because at Fairbanks, half the people, half the lots
have
permafrost and the other half don't.
Yes. Yes. Well, it's interesting. The numbers of things that you see in the published literature are... I don't think that matters.
Well,
I think
don't think
it depends
either.
on one's contributions.
Well, I think that's right. And I tried to always think a problem through. As soon as I came back from Alaska, I guess, I always said that I spent hottest summer, worst I ever had, working in military geology. Of course, none of that was published.
Was published, yes.
Then Nebraska got together and said it was terrible to bring Theis into Washington in the hottest summer they ever had. When they get up to him, we'll send him to Alaska for the winter.
Who was that did that?
I did.
Oh, I see. Oh,
because that's what happened.
I see.
Because just as soon as I got home from military geology, I had about a month in New Mexico. Then they sent me up to Alaska, or Alaska Highway. And there, first of all, I had to work on water supply on 1,500 miles of highway. It was an installation every 50 miles about,
Mostly supplied with groundwater.
Well, yes, it had to be. Pretty nearly.
Yeah.
And in fact, everything was groundwater, where they could get it. I remember the Canadian was in charge of one of the installations, and said, "What are you going to do if you can't find any water?" He said, "We'll melt slow." But the Americans really didn't have as good as bright as the Canadians about this. So this when I got back, I wrote up this little paper on thermal processes involved in the formation of permafrost. And besides the usual things, it was this seasonal insulation. Snow is an awful good insulator. When I went up to Columbia for the first time, went out to see Morris Ewing. And so he began telling me all about this permafrost, and I listened, and he said, "You don't seem very surprised." And so I told him I'd been there. I thought it was a bad, sort of a sad thing. They had to take a boy who never worked north of the Mason-Dixon line and send him up to Alaska to tell him about permafrost. And I got to think about it. Morris Ewing, of course, was born in West Texas. And to make a oceanographer out of him. Or even worse than what they did to me.
How many times did you go to Columbia?
I guess it was 4 semesters. That is,
4 years.
Yes, half a year.
Yeah.
1 semester each year.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work out. That didn't work out.
No, you were never very satisfied with that, were you?
I wasn't very well satisfied. I don't think they were very satisfied with the way it was working with me. Of course, well, at any rate, 4 years. Mm-hmm. And that's so, and Social Security people called me up and wanted me to come down to see them. I didn't pay attention during the first year. And then they called me up again another year. And because I knew at my age, I had to have, I think,
not too many quarters, probably, huh?
Oh, I think it's 14. I'm not sure. Let's see how it works out.
Yeah, it's not too many.
It's not too many. But, so I finally went back down to see them. And I found out that when I was teaching at Columbia, of course, I had to contribute to Social Security. And that if you contribute the maximum amount, you got, although I only worked 2 quarters, in intervening years, you see. It worked out to these 14. And so I got some windfall Social Security.
Yeah, that's nice, eh?
Well, just now they didn't have to pay taxes on it. And now you do, you see. I have a very low opinion. I got tired I voted for Reagan the first time, but then answer one of these questions. Asked something about evolution, creation. Or he said, I believe this was before he even took office. I believe the scientific evidence is in favor of creation now. This was one of those things, and
it's pretty hard to believe that as a geologist.
Well, of course, as a scientist of any sort, because you can't know the answer, and in science before you start out getting the evidence. Although I know one Nobel Prize is being accused of that. Prize winner. That was Libby.
Was Libby.
A man who got a Nobel Prize, but I've never heard a real good opinion expressed on Libby. Now, of course, the fellow that the chemist who discovered developed plutonium and scaled up a pinhead full into a Hanford plant, you see.
Are you thinking of
well, he was ahead of AEC too, like Libby was, but later.
Oppenheimer?
Oh no, Oppenheimer. No, he wasn't head of any time of the whole. He wasn't commissioner.
Lawrence?
No. Chemist really discovered plutonium, and was later head of it. Everybody loved him and respected him. I'm thinking of the people I knew in the AEC. They didn't know anything about Libby. And the fellow from Columbia, from Berkeley, refer to them as wild bills. He's down, you see. I never heard a good word about Libby anyplace.
C.V., when did you get involved with the atomic energy program? Was that
Oh, well, this
during
was...
the war?
Oh, yes. Let's see, was it? No, it was right after the war. Wasn't? Let me see.
Well, did Idaho Falls or at Oak Ridge? I know you worked at Oak Ridge also.
Oak Ridge, yeah, that's right. And Savannah River plant. And all of them, except we didn't have very much to do. It's the Metz, Nevada test site. Was all weapons.
Right.
And
well, it wasn't really until they started to do the underground testing at the test site that there were really any geologic problems, were there? I mean, as long as it was
I guess that's so.
All surface testing. Well, it was really after the Bainbury event when they had the gas venting that I gather they got really concerned about containment, and that containment panel took on a lot more importance. And I don't think you were involved at that point at the test site, were you?
No, I don't think I was at the first operation, the dynamite operation.
Yeah.
And I went back several times, but not a whole lot.
I want to ask you about something else. One of the things that you worked on early on was the transport problems, and I know you and Herb did some experiments, and you were looking at dispersion.
And
you did those early experiments.
Well, you see, I claimed Harold A. Thomas, Harvard, insisted that you get some dispersion. And I said I just couldn't see it amount to anything. Yeah, it might be a little raveling around the edges of the dye, something like that. And so he got his men to work on it. They got, what's his name?
Kaufman? Was it Kaufman?
Well, Kaufman was at
Berkeley?
At Berkeley. He was sanitary engineer there. And
but Thomas had somebody working at Harvard?
Oh, yes, he started it all, because I had made some remarks about that, and Harold decided, or didn't believe that, and so he got his men to perform this, and he did it under the mathematics department, actually. Who the Harvard man is, I've got his paper in my files, and Kaufman and Todd and Rifai was their student, worked on it
at Berkeley.
At Berkeley, and then Dave Todd told me that they had gone out to the field. You see the figures you get in the laboratory, of course, are so small that it didn't mean a thing in the field. So I was right, and Harold was right, you see, Harold Thomas. And he was about the smartest guy I ever saw.
Yeah, I don't know him well, but he's certainly very smart.
Yeah, and we got along fine. I didn't realize it, but he thought I was, well, one of his students said that there are two things that Harold Thomas thought he ought to have thought of. One of them was Taylor's work on Foether pipes and so forth. And the other was transient theory, groundwater theory.
Oh, he thought he should have thought of that?
Well, yes. Anyway, he was about as smart as Harold. Should. He just didn't happen to think about it. It wasn't very important to him, really. And so he did that. Well, anyway, in California, Rifai did his work, and then they went out to this little aquifer they have at Berkeley, about a 4-foot sandstone, 100 feet down, something like that. And so they got, one of their students work on that. And so Dave Todd said that they'd gone out to the field. And so I asked him if he got what he expected. He said, sure as hell didn't.
Yeah, that's right.
And so they didn't. Well, when we got such tremendously large dispersivities in nature, and such little ones
In the laboratory.
laboratory, there was something else involved, and the only thing that could be involved is, again, King Hubbert's refraction at float lines, at lenses of different permeability. So that, and of course, there's never been a suite of samples that didn't show a wide range, in a well, that didn't show a wide range of permeabilities. So that, and also, you never find the same log in any wells, any two wells.
Right.
So the only thing you got, you know that you're getting refraction at the edges of your different lenses. So that was the, I think.
That's when Jim Cahill did those model studies.
Oh yes, then, well, actually, before that, and yes, King Hubbert and he actually gave the excuse. He says he found out that nobody believed in theory, and so I guess he got his Cahill, as was it, to do the experiments to show that it actually did happen where he had promised, as he had prophesied. But he,
Well, it's very interesting, C.V.
well,
It's nice to hear you reminisce about it.
well, there's a.
It's been a long and illustrious career.
Did you know Bill Johnston started the foreign geology
No,
section?
no.
Well, he was the guy that took over, filled in for Fenneman's leave of absence
okay.
in the first
I didn't
beginning.
know that.
Well, I was just thinking of a story, his story. You know, he got some of the shell, well, he'd been down in Chicago, a field season in Missouri, Limestone. So Bill had been down there while he was at Chicago, and he decided.
Carl and Brett ran that.
Well, no, this wasn't Brett's. King said Brett's had the best. He learned more from Brett's course than anything else. They just down Oak Ridge once after a few drinks. Well, but so Bill got some of this shell macaroni, dirtied it up, there's a lot of dirt in it, and he took it over to the campus, and he showed it to Salisbury. And he said, you know what that is? And Salisbury knew where he had been. He said, oh, undoubtedly some of that St. Genevieve stuff. And so Bill then took it around to Weller, Stuart Weller.
Yeah.
And, you know, and tried the same thing. And Weller said, Bill Johnson, will you ever grow up?
Oh, he did. He knew exactly what it was.
He knew exactly what it was. And so that would have been all right. So Bill would have been told off. But when Weller was going over to the faculty club at noon, he met Salisbury going along. You know this story?
No, I haven't heard this story, but I can imagine.
Well, he said, you know what that kid Bill Johnson's been doing? He had macaroni and bringing around as gastropods, showing it off as gastropods. And the worst of it is, he said, some damn fool on the faculty fell for it.